Alright everybody, welcome back. So, top tier Russia is stomping right now. They have been for quite a bit, but it's gotten even worse this patch. A lot goes into it, the lineup that Russia has right now, along with a lot of very good players flocking to Russia because of said lineup. So, let's go ahead and get started, see if we can talk a little bit about what exactly is going on with Russian top tier. So I do want to start off with the BVM itself and talk a little bit about it, because it is a very, very capable MBT. It's just, I think it's a little bit too much hype. So don't get me wrong, still one of the best MBTs in the game, but the BVM isn't the reason why Russia is doing so incredibly well on top tier. Now, compared to other MBTs, it is a bit faster for the most part, and I do just want to go ahead and preface this by saying that the speed you're seeing on screen isn't quite accurate, because mine isn't spaded yet. I unlocked this well before I was a content partner for Gaijin, so just keep that in mind. I do have most of the necessary mods like thermal, smoke, of course, 3BM60, which is the top round for this thing. It is just going to be a bit faster, when you have a fully spaded T-80BVM. Now, either way, it is a little bit quicker than stuff like the Abrams or the Leopard 2A6. The round is a little bit weaker. 3BM60 is a very competent round, though. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, as long as you have more than, 480, 490 mils of pen at top tier, you're golden. You can pen all the same weak spots either way. You don't need all that extra pen, although it is nice, don't get me wrong, but you're still shooting weak spots either way. You're not penning an Abrams turret cheek, you're not penning a Leopard 2A5 or 2A6, and pretty much any round you get isn't going to be able to pen a Leopard 2A5 or 2A6 turrets. So all you need is just enough pen to go for those weak spots. And even the tier 1 APFSDS this thing gets, which is Mango, 3BM42, easily pens that. So it's not a huge concern. It does good damage, though. That is one nice thing about it compared to some of the other rounds, is that 3BM60 seems to do as much damage, if not more, than M829, A1, A2, other stuff like that, which also do excellent damage. So, besides the speed, besides the firepower, you do get Gen 2 thermals, which most other top tiers do get, of course. Now, the Leopard 2A5 and 2A6 have Gen 2 commander thermals, but not Gen 2 gunner thermals, which this thing has. So, you have just an overall good platform for speed, firepower, and thermals, of course. In addition to that, you have Relikt, which you can see on the sides of this thing. So, going from Contact 1 and Contact 5, Relikt just to Contact 5 is heavy ERA. So, for those of y'all who don't know the differences between ERA types, Contact 1 is what stuff like the Terms has. It is only designed to defeat chemical munitions. That's what stuff like, the Tusk patches on the M1A2 is. Heavy ERA has a lot more explosive, and it also has plates of metal sandwiched in there as well. So what it does is when it gets hit by APFSDS, for example, it'll go ahead and push sheets of metal into the rod, and that'll decrease the penetration that it has, and it'll deform it as well. In some cases, they can actually stop the APFSDS altogether. And this right here is allowing me to just eat shell after shell from, I think it's a Type 90? I'm not 100% sure, but whatever it is that's shooting me in the side. They're either hitting my turret and hitting the Contact 5 that's on the turret, or they're hitting my side and they're hitting the Contact 5 on the side of the tank. So, it can actually just entirely eat shells from the HSTVL, and I'm about to do this again right here. I get my barrel knocked out, and instead of doing the smart thing and reversing across this ridge, I just sit down in the open. I thought the smoke would protect me. It didn't. My mistake. But I'm going to sit here and tank even more shells. Now, this does go along with the tendency, I'm going to say tendency, for Russian tanks to sometimes just refuse to get ammo racked or refuse to have spalling damage. It has been very common, especially when I'm playing stuff like the HSTVL, which relies on ammo racks, for Russian tanks to just eat a shell to the ammo, just turn black and disappear. I'm sure y'all have also seen this. And this does happen with other tanks as well, but it seems to be very prevalent with Russian tanks. There is a very nice degree of survivability, but I wouldn't necessarily say the T-80BVM is that much better than something like the Stridsvagn 122 or the Stridsvagn, or like Leopard 2A6 or M1A2 set. The big thing here is that you get a very nice lineup to go along with it. Especially since once you die in your BVM or your T-90 or whatever else, you get your MiG-27K, which is still one of, if not the best, ground pounders in the game. And you're able to go to space just like I'm doing right here. Now, last patch, any plane could do this right here, essentially, and just go up to space and not have to worry about it for the most part. If they got above the radar of the enemy, that was it. Now, this patch, they did have contrails, which makes it, you know, a lot easier to spot people up high. So, I'm actually spotted right now, and the guy is radar locking me. By the way, switch to IRST so they don't know you're locking you. But either way, I am getting spotted right now, so I'm sitting here looking around for this this AA. It turns out to be a Relikt red, right? Well, Gaijin, in their infinite wisdom, decided they also wanted to go ahead, and while they were adding the Pantsir, they wanted to nerf pretty much all the other SAMs in the game. So you can see right here, I'm just doing a slight dodge, and it misses. Now, I'm not able to keep my missile locked on while I'm doing that, and he is going to fire again at me, so I have to dodge again. Or at least I thought he was about to. But I can just sit here and dance around the missiles now as I'm coming in. You weren't able to do this last patch. I would have died right there. But because they've nerfed the tracking on these missiles, I don't know exactly what they did. It's especially bad on the Tunguska, which is part of the reason why it went down to 10.7. That thing is basically unable to shoot down fast-moving planes. But even top-tier SAMs, like this Relikt right here, he's firing missile after missile at me, even some at close range, and I can just dodge. It's bad enough that I can just come in and gun hit and get a kill, just like that. A top-tier SAM was just killed by guns. This is pretty bad. And while they did this, they also went ahead and added the Pantsir, which I'm going to be talking later. But what this means is that I am still able to climb, I am still able to get my missiles off on this M1A1 aim right here, but the enemy team is not able to do so. So this is effectively a soft buff for the MiG-27K, which is already very good, because unlike the F4E, unlike the F5E and other stuff like that, this thing works at night. This thing works in poor weather. You know, the missiles are much faster than the Mavericks. They're much more capable as well, because it's just a high explosive warhead. And so when it slams in there, you don't have to worry about a heat charge just randomly deciding that it doesn't want to do damage, which you'll see all the time. 9 times out of 10, if this thing hit the tank, it is dead, because it's essentially hitting it with a 250 kilogram bomb. And that is massive. They're also cheaper than Mavericks, by the way. In addition to that, remember how I was talking with the Pantsir earlier? Yeah, well, they decided to add the Pantsir, of course. This thing has more range, and it has much higher G missiles than pretty much everything else. It gets TWS, which doesn't warn enemies they're being locked onto, which is honestly ridiculous in and of itself, because it doesn't have the downsides that IRST have. You can still lock in third person and everything else, but it doesn't warn them on their radar. They just get slight little ping, or on their RWR, I should say. They get little ping showing that there is a radar there, but there's no warning that they're being locked onto. In addition, you also get guns, just like the Tunguska. So, hypothetically speaking, if there was someone that managed to dodge the missiles on the way in, like I did to that Relikt earlier, I could just gun them down. The Relikt doesn't have that option. Even people that are 6 or 7 kilometers away in a helicopter, they're not going to be able to dive in time. Now, he didn't really do much here, but just the missiles are so fast that you don't have to worry about that. Drones are not going to be able to get into range to even just fire a Hellfire before I missile them, as long as I see them in time. This thing has 20 kilometer max range, 18 kilometer guaranteed range. Planes spawn in at 15 kilometers. A lot of airfields are less than 20 kilometers away. I don't know if you've seen my A7 video, but I was literally at the map border getting hit by this thing. And what this does is it creates a bubble where only Soviet aircraft are able to exist, essentially. So NATO cast is getting slapped out of the sky, while Soviet or Russian cast is able to exist with no problem. That goes along with the very nice lineup you get with the T-80BVM, T-80U, T-90, T-80UK, all the other stuff, in addition to all the light tanks they get. And then you also have the fact that very good ground players are flocking to the Russian lineup. That is the big thing here, is that because the lineup is so good, you're getting a ton of very, very, very good players who are all grouping together with the same nation. Meanwhile, on the other team, you got stuff like the M1A1A, the squadron vehicle for the Americans. And so you get incredibly stacked teams with very competent lineups and basically complete air superiority. And there's almost no way to counter it. So hopefully this gets changed. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.